question now, should I go and give you?
The Hebrew word for ease, shalom. All right, shalom.
Shalom.
Which means to ease.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. As always, first I want to give the praises and the glory to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and to His only begotten Son, Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and to the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to you, and shalom to the hopefully elect brothers and sisters of the house of Israel. As the Bible says, many are called, few are chosen. As you can see from the title, America is the reincarnation of the Roman Empire, destined for destruction. America is the reincarnation of the Roman Empire, destined for destruction. 1 second, fam. Get me Bible.
The prophet said, give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with food convenient for me, lest I be full or be at ease and deny the Lord. Isn't that what the prophet said? That's in Proverbs 30. So you don't want to be too much at ease. You always want to be on that edge, man. Keeps your mind sharp. What happens is when you get at ease, you become complacent, then you start getting soft. And then before you know it, your faith starts suffering. Proverbs 30 and it is right here, 30 and 9. Least I be full and deny thee. And that the 8th verse.
Okay, let me just pause this. I was listening to the Apostle Tahar video. Being edified as always. Let me just pause this.
Free of any kind of.
So, I want you to listen to what Colonel McGregor says here in his interview he did yesterday, and how he likens America to Rome, the Roman Empire, and Europe as the 10 horns, the vassal states of America. All right, I want you to listen to how he's going to use an analogy. He's going to go into history regarding Rome, when the Roman Empire conquered Greece. All right, and when they went into Greece and they conquered the Greek Empire, when they first came in, because they were Greek states that was, profoundly influenced by the Greek culture. And this is kind of where you get the Greco-Roman civilization, what we see today amongst these Edomites, all right? So let's just quickly, I want to listen to a bit what he says here. It's how he likens America to Rome. I thought it really stood out, because as we told you, America is the reincarnation of the Roman Empire.
That's the first part. Secondly, from the very beginning, I have wondered why President Trump pays as much attention to the Europeans and NATO as he does. Because the European states in NATO are analogous in many ways to the Greek city-states at the time of the Roman Empire. Initially, the Greek city-states found this Philip of Macedonia, who was a descendant of Alexander the Great, and his father Philip, reprehensible. They couldn't get rid of them. They were an oppressive, tyrannical group. And so they invited the Romans to come into Greece to help rid themselves of the Macedonian menace, which they did. The Romans threw them out, defeated the Macedonians, liberated Greece. And everything was fine until the Greek city-states decided to fight with each other. The Romans.
Same thing. Because when America entered World War II, they came basically to save Europe from the internal war that was going on between Germany and the rest of the European nations. Because remember, they was fighting each other. Germany was on the side of Italy, and Spain were on the same side, and they was fighting against France, Great Britain. Russia joined, and then you had the rest of the Western countries in Europe that was on that side against Germany and their allies. And then America came in, just like he's saying here, just like how Rome came into Greece. right? Because there was wars going on between the different Greek states.
Intervened again and said, look, we didn't liberate you so that you could kill each other and disrupt trade and commercial development in the Eastern Mediterranean. So we're taking over. We're running the place, which is effectively what we did after World War II. We said, we're not going to allow anybody in Europe to fight anymore. We're going.
Exactly what they did, right? Let's just play that back, right? So he's going into the history of when Rome intervened in the wars that was going on between the Greek states, and then they eventually kind of became like a vassal state because Rome eventually had to finally go in and conquer these Greek states, and they all became tributaries to Rome, right? So he's using that analogy to compare what he sees going on today between America and these European nations. So let me play this back again. I'm going to let it play out this time, right?
Invited the Romans to come into Greece for an oppressive, tyrannical group. And so they invited the Romans to get rid of the Great, and he found this Philip of Macedonia, who was a descendant of Alexander the Great, and his father Philip, reprehensible. They couldn't get rid of them. They were an oppressive, tyrannical group. And so they invited the Romans to come into Greece to help rid themselves of the Macedonian menace, which they did. The Romans threw them out, defeated the Macedonians, liberated Greece. And everything was fine until the Greek city-states decided to fight with each other. The Romans intervened again and said, look, we didn't liberate you so that you could kill each other and disrupt trade and commercial development in the Eastern Mediterranean. So we're taking over. We're running the place, which is effectively what we did after World War II. We said, we're not going to allow anybody in Europe to fight anymore. We're going to establish peace. These are the guidelines. The Greek city-states became irrelevant because they were just other members of the greater Roman Empire. Well, this is going to sound harsh, but that's true for Europe and the United States today. And the Europeans have gone to great lengths to make themselves permanently dependent upon us for their survival, not just militarily, but I would argue also economically. Now, that may change as a result of the recent events, but why should President Trump pay any attention to the NATO allies? He should get them into a room and say, this is it. No more war. We've had it. We're going to end it. These are the terms to which we are prepared to agree. If you don't like it, well, there are things we can do because you are dependent upon us. We can make life very miserable for you. That's what Eisenhower did in the aftermath of the Suez Crisis. He made it clear to the British and the French and others, if you don't get the hell out of Egypt and let this thing alone, then we are going to take measures against you, which are going to pull the rug out from under you financially. I guess my point is that for all the bluster, all the big talk that comes out of Trump, he behaves like a pussycat. Oh, won't you please sign on for this? We'd like your input. We want you to join us. The hell with that. We have no interest in this war in Ukraine. We never have. We have no interest in Ukraine other than stability and peace. That's what should have been stated right up front. Instead, we were dragged into this ridiculous anti-Russian crusade, largely because of the people that were running the Biden administration, and many of the people running this administration are no different. They adhere to the same principles, the same thinking. You know, it's not just Israel über alles. It's we're going to demand that Russia commit suicide before we do business with them. It's insane. It's all got to change. But he doesn't seem to be a free agent. He doesn't seem to be able to act decisively on his own in the interest of the American people.
Well, and so that's
because, you know, we said this before, that we believe more likely that the Russians have got something on Trump. But ultimately, as the scripture says, you know, America will go to war against Russia, all right? Because that's going to be the catalyst. That's going to be the main event in World War III. The catalyst is going to be, you know, Israel. The least of the flock is going to draw them out. But the main agitators, all right, the main players are going to be Russia and America and their allies. So he was there comparing, showing you, he was going back to the history between the Greek and the Roman empires, right? Whereas, you know, the Rome came in to try to settle the wars that was going on between the different Greek states. And once they did, they still was still at odds with each other, the different Greek states and rulership. So these are the times, like during the times of Antiochus, the great Antiochus Epiphanes, Antiochus Philopator, during the times of what's his name, Cassander, during the times of the Ptolemies Empire as well, right? All the different Ptolemy rulerships as such. But this is when this was going on, basically. So he was likening what he sees today going on between America and these European countries, because Europe is divided, is the same thing that he was likening it to the same events that was taking place during the times of the Roman Empire, when Rome, finally came in and took control of Greece, basically, which was around 150 BC. Where it completely, I think it was called the Battle of Corinth, where they completely destroyed it and they annexed the mainland of Greece, basically, and then they became total tributaries to the Roman Empire, basically, as such. So it was surprising that, the way that he was relating and liking those events to the events that he sees today. And the reason why I say that is because America is the reincarnation of the Roman Empire, and those NATO nations are the 10 horns, right? Those European nations are the 10 horns that the Bible speaks of. All right. So if we go into, hold on, we're going to quickly go into a bit of that history. And this is why, Rome became sort of known as the Greco-Roman Empire. All right. There's a massive history that goes back between the Romans, well, they were ultimately, they all were Edomites as such. By that point, by the time Rome took control, Greek was now fully controlled by Edomites as such. During that Hellenistic age, basically. So you had a lot of history between the two nations, right? And between the two empires. So Daniel spoke about this fourth beast, all right? Where is it? Daniel's chapter 7. There we go. All right. This one kind of goes straight to the point. He spoke about the four great beasts, which were going to be four famous great empires that was eventually going to lead us to the fourth one, which would have been the Roman Empire. So in here, the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 17, when it says, these great beasts, which are four, right, are four kings which shall rise out of the earth, right? Now, this goes back to the vision that Daniel had. So I think it's at the beginning of it when it speaks about it. Yeah, it's at the beginning of Daniel 7, but we won't need to go to it, basically, because at the beginning of the chapter, but I kind of want to start here. And we'll just so these are the four kings which shall arise out of the earth, all right? So Daniel spoke clearly about these four beasts, which he saw, which I think was Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah, it was Daniel. I keep thinking Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel. Yeah, it was Daniel's vision. Yeah, this is here, because I know Nebuchadnezzar had a vision as well regarding the gold, the statue, but this is Daniel's vision that he had here, right, in Daniel chapter 7. And the first, he says the first was like a lion, right, which represented the Neo-Babylonian Empire. And he said the second was like, what was it, a bear, which represented the Persian and the Medes Empire. And then the third was like a leopard, which represents the Greek Empire, right? Which is when Alexander the Great comes on the scene, and which is what he was referring to, basically, because after Alexander the Great died, he left these four generals who they murdered Alexander's offsprings, and then between them, they took control of Alexander's kingdom. They split it between the four of them. And then them themselves became enemies to each other because they were fighting wars. You had in the scriptures, it speaks about the 6 Syrian wars. In Daniel chapter 11, goes into the 6 Syrian wars, which has already taken place. So all of Daniel chapter 11 has all been fulfilled already. And then the third was a leopard, and the fourth beast, which is the 4 kings, is Rome, the Roman Empire, basically, as such, which became, the ultimate power. So each kingdom took down the previous kingdoms, basically, as such. So Rome represents, first and primarily represents America, but those European nations they're like vassal states of Rome. They make up part of that Roman Empire, but the military stronghold for Rome today is the United States of America. Then it says, but the saints of the Most High, which are the elect of the children of Israel, all right, shall take the kingdom. So this is going to be the ultimate end game. For all that said and done, the Lord's saints, starting with the 144,000, all right, which are the first fruits, 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes, the elect of the Most High's people, and then the rest of the saints, the elect men, are going to take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Now, what kingdom is this speaking about? We're going to take Esau's kingdom, but the kingdom that we're going to possess is the kingdom of heaven, which is coming to earth, basically. As we always say, just say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, right? The Lord's kingdom is coming to earth. And it's going to be an everlasting kingdom. But the power that's going to be in charge at that time is going to be what we know today as an empire that's going to be considered the reincarnation of the Roman Empire, which is America, and the European states, which are all literally vassal states to America. All right, they all make up the European Empire, right? The Roman Empire. Britain is part of that Roman Empire. He says, then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, right? Which was diverse from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with his feet. Because the Roman military, you see, they'd never seen a military as organized and as powerful as Rome was during these times, going back, from 100 BC, leading up to the times of Julius Caesar. You had the what do you call them? The triumphant. The triumphant. I'm pronouncing it right. With the first triumphant with Julius Caesar, triumphant, Julius Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus. Right? Yeah, Julius Caesar, Pompey, and Marcus Crassus, right? They made up the first triumvirate of the Rome. So that's when Rome came to like the pinnacle of its power, because that's when it became known as an empire now, right? Because before it was known as a republic. And this is where the Caesars now became the power. The power seat now was kind of held in Caesar. Caesar's rulership became the power seat. So they all became known as Caesars because Julius Caesar was the first, ruler of the empire as a Caesar, overall ruler. And then all of the other rulers that became known as Caesars just took on that name. That it was like a title, basically, right? So the first triumvirate came together around 65 BC, around that time, basically. And Caesar was the last of the three that survived, basically. All right. Pompey was known for his military prowess. So was Caesar. Julius Caesar was known, and Marcus Crassus was the one that had the money. Right. Basically. And Crassus was the first one to die out of the three. Marcus Crassus, right? He was what you would call like a billionaire back then, right? He was the first one to die out of the three. And then after he died, it led literally to wars between Julius Caesar and Pompey, basically. And, Pompey was finally, defeated by Caesar. So Crassus' death caused that war between, because now they were vying for power, because they was all sharing power. Crassus' death caused the war between the two generals, Pompey and Caesar, leading literally to a power struggle and a civil war. And the civil war ended with Pompey's defeat and death, and Caesar became, they say, dictator of Rome, which now became known as the first Caesar. That's why they would say, Hail Caesar, Julius Caesar. And every emperor after him, he became known as the first emperor, really. And every emperor after him was known as Caesar. And that. So, it was an informal political alliance, but it was an alliance, nevertheless, that they had. Basically, until the second triumvirate came about after Caesar's death. All right, after Julius Caesar's death. So this is why they were so powerful. All right, it's because of their military. This is why it says they're exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, his nails of brass, which devour and break in pieces and stamp the residue of his feet. So we see the same thing today with America and its military might. America is known for its exceedingly dreadful military because, you remember, these were the first people to drop atom bombs, nuclear bombs on another nation to defeat them on a war. They did that against Japan in the Second World War. They dropped 2 atom bombs, right, on Japan, which were exceedingly dreadful, right? Whose teeth were as iron, right? They had, they had produced the most advanced military weapons that the world had seen. But, now other nations are on par with them, like Russia and China, basically. But still, America is still known for its dreadfulness in its army. You think of the stuff that it did in Afghanistan and Iraq and every other place that it invaded illegally to get what it wanted. And his nails of brass. So these are all symbolically representing the power, the military power of the Roman Empire that we see today again with America, which devoured and break in peace and stamped the residue of his feet. And this is what they did. They did it back then. This is how Rome made all of these different countries became vassal states. So if you came up against Rome back then, and because they would first offer you the ability to be a tributary country to them, to pay them in money and goods at the end of every year or every 6 months, however they want to run it through their calendar, that you have to provide them with X amount of cattle, X amount of harvest, things from your harvesting from your fields, X amount of gold or silver every year to be continued, because at the same time, you would get that kind of protection from them. And we see the same thing with Europe today. Europe does provide America with a lot of things because America's military might protects Europe from who they consider their enemy, which is Russia. All right. So it's a reincarnation. What we see today, we're seeing the same things taking part today because that's who they are. So let's go to verse 20, all right? And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the others which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. So the 10 horns are what we know today as the European countries, the alliances, that make up part of NATO, basically. So when it says, and the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the others which came up, and before whom 3 fell. All right. So the 3 that fell were the 3 empires that had existed before America became known as, the numero uno empire today, the number 1 on the list, basically. So that would be France, Spain, and England. All right. So those 3 powerful empires fell. The 10 horns, represent the European nations, but they all go back to, they first and foremost go back to the Germanic tribes, right, which invaded, the Roman Empire, and Rome eventually made them become vassal states of Rome, right, basically, until around the 3rd and 4th century AD, when they eventually they played a part in taking down the Roman Empire, right, were those Germanic tribes. And we're going to see the same thing again today. these European nations are going to play a part in taking down the Roman Empire today, the power seat of the Roman Empire today, which is America. Those Germanic tribes, those 10 horns, which are those European nations today, back then, they will be known as the, what do they call them? The Visigoths, the Vandals, the Lombards, the Alamanis, the Ostrogoths, the Burgundians, the Franks, the Jutes, the Angles, and the Saxons. Which would have made up those EU nations back then. So these same Germanic tribes in the beginning, when Rome was at the height of its power, right, going all the way back from Julius Caesar all the way up to Septimius Severus, right, all through the 12 emperors that ruled, the 12 Edomite emperors that ruled from Augustus and what's his name, Augustus, Caligula, I can see his name, man, Augustus, Caligula, he had Tiberius, what's that other one's name? He was Caligula's, I think that was Caligula's stepfather. And then you had the year of the four, the year of the four emperors, basically. Because I've actually got the book, Septimius, it's called Septimius, who wrote the book regarding these 12 emperors. Caligula, Claudius, that's the one I'm thinking of. Right? Claudius. I said Tiberius, didn't I? Nero, that's what we believe Trump is, the reincarnation of Nero. And then you had the year of the four emperors. Those ones are always easy to remember. Galba, Otho, Vitellius, Vespasian. And then obviously Vespasian's two sons, Titus and Domitian. I always get caught in between Caligula and Claudius because they both begin with C. But yeah, so those are the 12 emperors. And then you had, after that, you had, what's his name? He was considered the first Negro Israelite emperor of Rome. I forget his name now. I can see his thing. Nerva. Then you had Nerva, and then you go through the rest of the emperors, Hadrian, and I can't remember them all. But anyway, so, and then it leads up to, you get the one in Gladiator, I forget his name, the one that they had played in Gladiator, he was a Jake as well. And then you had the emperor, Septimius Severus. And then you're kind of leading up to the 3rd century, around about the 3rd century, about the 3rd century AD is when these Germanic tribes, right, took down, this was kind of the beginning of taking down of the western part Roman Empire, basically, all right? Is it Caracalla? That was the one in the movie. Caracalla was the one in the movie. All right, that's the one. I think that's the one that Denzel Washington played. Caracalla. Commodus is the one I was thinking of. Commodus is the one in the first Gladiator movie. Caracalla was the one in the second Gladiator movie, basically. Because Septimius Severus was just before Caracalla. I'm not sure if he was just before or 2 emperors before him, but it was kind of during the 3rd century AD, and I think it was around the time of Constantine, just after Constantine the Great, which is around 300 AD, is when they got taken down, basically, when the Roman Empire on the western side became no longer a power, basically. So, and who took them down? Because the point I'm trying to make here is those Germanic tribes, all right? The Germanic tribes, which are the 10 horns that you see there, right? So 300 years later, the Germanic tribes took down Rome, right, and its power on the western side, and then the only power that was in play now was the Byzantine or the Byzantine Empire, which they referred to as the eastern part of the Roman Empire, which was ruled by Jake. That was a power itself on the eastern side, but on the western side, it was taken down, completely taken down by the Germanic tribes. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the 10 horns are those Germanic tribes. And the reincarnation of those Germanic tribes today is these European nations. And yes, they're going to play a part in the taking down of Babylon, Rome's stronghold today again. That's what I said. There's no new thing under the sun, right? So they're going to once again play a major part in taking Rome down, taking down Rome's power, which is America, Babylon the Great. And we know that when we go to, I'm going to come back to Daniel 7, just working in the spirit. I'm going to come back to Daniel 7, but we know that from Revelation. I won't say Revelations. I said, stop saying Revelations. Yeah, it's Revelation. Revelation 17, right? Just so I'm going to show you. This is part of the end time. We're going to go back to Daniel 7, right? This is part of the end time prophecy, right? When it says there, and the 10 horns, those are the same 10 horns we're reading about in Daniel 7, all right? Because back then they were known as the Germanic tribes. Today they're known as the European Union. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, right? The beast is NATO, right? And the 10 horns are part of NATO, right? These shall hate the whore. The whore is America, right? Which is the reincarnation of the Roman Empire, which is the military might of the Roman Empire. So back then, Rome itself was the might of the Roman Empire. It showed all of its power because it was this metropolis, if I'm pronouncing the word right, metropolis city where all different nations live. So there's no new thing under the sun, right? Yeah, it was like a metropolis city. That's what they call it. And today they call it the melting pot, America. All right, it's a metropolis, yeah, which is like a large city, basically. So London would be considered a metropolis, and New York City would be, Babylon, America, because America is known as that great city, as the whole place is known as that great city in the Bible. London would be kind of considered a metropolis because it's made up of many immigrants of different nationalities and backgrounds live in London today. But America is the ultimate metropolis. That's why it's known as the metropolis. That's why it's known as the melting pot. So the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, right? The 10 horns is what we know today as, like I said, the European nations, right? Saw upon the beast. The beast is NATO. The 10 horns are part of NATO. These shall hate the whore. The whore is America, Babylon the Great. That's Rome. That's Rome's stronghold, right? That's the reincarnation of the Roman Empire's stronghold is America. And shall make her desolate and naked, you see? So just like how they played a part in taking down ancient Rome, the 10 horns, they're going to play a part once again in taking down the reincarnation of the Roman Empire, its military might and stronghold, which is the United States of America. So there's no new thing under the sun. They shall make her desolate and naked and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. That fire that they're going to use to burn America, the whore with, is going to be the European nations' own nuclear missiles and whatever other type of conventional missiles they may have that they will use to fire upon America. All right. So they're going to play a part in taking down America today as well. It may not seem like it right now. I feel, I can't see Europe coming up against America, but yes, they are. Why? Because it is the will of the Most High. As you can see here, for the Most High, which is Yahweh, has put it in their hearts to fulfill his will. It's not my will. It's not your will. We can't, we're showing you exactly that the Most High is going to put the spirit on these nations and the leaders of these nations to turn their weapons against America, right? Which are today we consider them as American allies. In the near future, they're going to become enemies of America, and they're going to turn their nuclear missiles and their conventional missiles against America, and to agree and to give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of Yahweh shall be fulfilled. So the Most High is going to put it, is going to put it in their hearts, which is their minds, lahab, to fulfill His will. All right, because what they've done, they've kind of given over all power to America to lead them, but it's going to get to a point where they're going to turn against America and they're going to burn her with fire. All right. So we go back to Daniel 7. The 10 horns, the Germanic tribes, right? They played a part in taking down ancient Rome around 300 and just after Constantine the Great, basically around 300 and I don't know, say around about 350 to 400 AD. They played a part in taking down the western part, the western power of Rome, right? Because at that time, Rome had, I think just that time or just after, they had like emperors in both sides, and the western side was considered the power until they were taken down by these Germanic tribes, which are the 10 horns. It says, and then it says here, and of the others which came up, and before whom 3 fell. So the 3 that fell, this is after the Germanic tribes, is the French Empire. This is during the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th century. The French Empire, the Spanish Empire, and the English Empire. All right. These are the 3 that fell. And even of that horn that had eyes, right? That horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things. That is America, Babylon the Great, right? And as Trump is showing you, right? When he speaks very great things regarding America, how great America is, and that is another better place than America, and no one's got no better military than America, and America can take down any country, and if any country doesn't want to agree with America, America will go to war with them or cut them off or, bring sanctions against them and this and that. Very great things, and mainly against the lesser countries. Oh, we're going to invade Venezuela, we're going to invade Colombia, We went into Afghanistan on a lie. We went into Iraq on a lie. We we invaded Libya with the NATO allies on a lie. This has been constant, right? And many more other countries that I can't even think of that America, if you listed the amount of countries that America's invaded since the Second World War, it's probably about 24 countries since the Second World War. From Vietnam to the Korean War. They've been everywhere, these devils, because they speak very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows, all right? More terrifying than his fellows, his look. What's I going to go to? Revelations. I think it's in Revelations. I'm going to show you something. Yeah, here it is. In Revelations 11, verse 11, as you're going to see here, once again, the same things that Daniel was saying here, he spoke, he even of that horn that had eyes and mouth that spake very great things, whose look was very stout than his fellows. John the Revelator speaks on the same thing, nearly using the same type of words about America, Babylon the Great. In these end time prophecies, Revelations 13 and 11, it says, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, which was America, right? Which was that deadly wound that healed, the 4th beast, the reincarnation of the 4th beast, the deadly wound that healed. I think if you go up to about verse 2 in Revelations 13, it speaks about the deadly wound that healed. And he had 2 horns like a lamb. 2 horns symbolically represents the Republican and the Democrats, the left, the right, the 2 political parties. Back then, during the Roman times, it was known as the plebeians and the patricians, right? Today, we call them left, right, conservative, Labour, or Democrat, Republic. And he spake as a dragon. Spake as a dragon. So he's saying literally the same thing that Daniel said, John the Revelator. When Daniel says here, even of that horn, which the horn symbolizes power, that had eyes, and a mouth that spake what? Very great things, because he spoke as a dragon. He cared not what he said or who he said it to. whose look was more stout than his fellows because of his military. He always looked at his military might. That's why his look was more stout than his fellows. He always looked at his military might as being the thing, the ultimate thing that he will use if anyone tried to come up against him, against America, basically. All right. He'd always look at that military, his military, and say, look, you don't get it. We've got all this military power, prowess on the seas, on the land, in the air, in the skies. They see themselves as undefeatable, but that's their pride. That's why the scriptures know, but the pride of thine heart has deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks. The pride of Esau's heart has truly deceived him. So let's go to verse 21. It says, and I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints. All right. Now we've been seeing this being intensified in these last days. The same horn as America, Babylon the Great. He made war with the saints. Really, the beginning of him making war with the saints would have been when he came to the Americas to establish America. All right. Because he went to war against the Native American Indian tribes, and he wiped out literally the majority of them to establish the United States of America, right? This is what those Europeans did, came and created what we know today as America, reincarnation of Rome. They made war with the saints. And at the same time, they had the saints on slave ships, and they was bringing them to the Americas to build up this new found promised land that they found, not that they found, sorry, that they conquered with violence and, destruction and rape and murder. He made war with the saints and prevailed against them. And he did prevail. This is why he was able to establish this reincarnation of the Roman Empire's HQ, which is America, this power, this military power, might. So he prevailed against the saints, which are the Lord's people. But that's only going to take place until what? Until the Ancient of Days came. So this is to come. Because even today he's making war against the saints. What do you think he's using? He's using his immigration strike force called ICE to capture Jake, the Latinos, the Hispanics, the Mexicans, in America. And he's rounding them up, putting them in detention centers, and he's deporting them, and he's even today he continues to make war with the saints. But that's only going to go on until the Ancient of Days come. But when the Ancient of Days comes, which is really going to be his son, because the Ancient of Days is the Most High God. That's Yahweh, all right? So it's the Son that's coming in the name of the Father, Yahweh. So when it says until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was given to the saints, judgment was given to the saints of the Most High, and the time came that the saints did what? Possess the kingdom. So that time is coming. But it's only going to start with the elect of the children of Israel. Not all Israel is going to be saved. As you should know by now, 2/3 of the children of Israel are going to die in the United States of America during the war of Armageddon, during the nuclear war, and during the midst of when the Lord himself comes to gather the elect. The Lord himself is going to complete the destruction of America, and the 2/3 are going to die during that destruction. Those that survive the nuclear missiles are going to die from the chariots. Because the saints that the Lord is coming to set up and possess the kingdom is the elect, the E-L-E-C-T, the elect of the Lord's people. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom, which is, or shall I say, was the Roman Empire upon the earth, right? Which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, which it was. What really made it diverse was its military prowess. And shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces, because the reincarnation of that fourth beast is here today, known as the United States of America, right? And its vassal states. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, which we spoke about, the Germanic tribes. And another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings, right? The 3 kings represent the 3 empires that we spoke about earlier: the British Empire, the British Empire, the French Empire, the Spanish Empire. All right. And he shall speak great words against the Most High. All right. And we see A lot of that we see now taking place with this AI technology, because they look at AI as being their God. So he shall speak great words against the Most High, and he does. And like I said, these people, these elites of Esau, all right, especially those that are based in Babylon and even throughout Europe, right? These elites of these Edomites, you know, they're properly high into witchcraft and on the left-hand side. And they do speak great words against the Most High. This is why they promote everything that's against the Most High. From the alphabet community that they promote, right? To this type of living, to the foods that they give you, the processed foods that they've poisoned, right? They believe that they are God, that they're, you know, they want to give you all type of, you know, everything's going to be bioengineered by these people, until ultimately, as we always tell you, the end game is what? Is the chip, the total control. They want to be the controllers of your every move and every step and your every breath, right? So they speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, which is what they are, because we're totally worn out, man. We're tired. We are tired, man. We're all tired. The apostles are tired. The prophets are tired. The elders, the bishops, all the prophets of Yahweh, we're tired. You know, we're not tired of doing the work, but we're tired of Esau. And we're tired of the things that he continues to do and continues to get away with. But we know that we have to be patient. As the scripture says, wait ye, I think it's Micah chapter 7, wait ye upon me, the Lord said, until I rise up to the prey. So we got to be patient. You know, we're tired of this man. We're tired of everything that he's doing. Every day we get up, it's like Groundhog Day. So, oh shit, we got to deal with these Edomites again. We've got to listen to their foolery. You know, we got to work through their system. You know, we got to accept certain shit that they're doing. We're tired of this man. We're not tired of the Lord's work, but we're tired of this man. And he shall wear out those saints of the Most High. And he has worn us out, man. I don't know about you guys, but I truly feel worn out by these people, man. And everything I see about them, it just wears me out, man. I'm like, how long, Lord? How long? But I know I have to be patient, patient, patient. That's the key. And think to change times and laws, which is what he's done. He's changed everything to fit his lifestyle, his wicked lifestyle. This man went from having, you know, from having in his law books the act of sodomy has been a crime, to him now making it a law that is legal now for them to do all that madness. Seriously. And they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and a dividing of times, which is what happened. That time and the dividing of times, you know, symbolically represents the 350 years of slavery, you know, then 100 years of Jim Crow. We're tired, man, truly. But we know the end is great for us. We just got to hold on. It's like being on a roller coaster ride and Esau's sitting behind you on the roller coaster and keeps whacking you in the head with his stick. And you're thinking, I can't wait for this roller coaster ride to stop, man. Once it stops, I'm going to deal with that devil. So Esau's roller coaster ride is coming to a sudden end, a sudden shock. And when it does, we're going to be able to deal with him according to the scriptures, according to the will of the Most High and the will of Yahweh Shai. But the judgment shall sit, you see. So the roller coaster ride will stop for Esau, and the judgment will sit that the Bible speaks of. And they shall take away his dominion. You see, once the ride stops for Esau, boy, we're going to take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end, because Babylon is going to become a human altar, a human sacrifice to the Most High. I still believe that people still don't comprehend the amount of destruction and damage the Most High is sending his son to come to do. I don't think people can still comprehend. I don't think they believe it. I mean, we're just about able to comprehend it. We can see it, but even us ourselves, we're not going to truly be able to comprehend the destruction until it takes place. But we know it's coming, and we know it's going to be the most devastating thing this world has ever witnessed. So it's going to be consumed and destroyed to the end, beginning with the nuclear missiles, ending with the chariot, the Lord's chariot, and then the chariots of the angels. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom are under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, the saints which are the elect of the children of Israel. So the kingdom and dominion that this man ruled over, this whole planet Earth, and the greatness of the kingdom, the greatness of this earth is absolutely beautiful. It just needs to be in the right hands, the right rulership, a righteous rulership. Under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. There's no Gog and Magog coming up and rising up out of the mountains or out of the Caucasus Mountain and coming down after 1,000 years to wage war with the Israelites. It's not going to happen. This world is going to be so subjugated under the children of Israel. And remember, we're going to possess spiritual powers. We're going to be immortal. We're going to be able to fly. We're going to be able to create balls of fire from our hands, laser beams from our eyes. We're going to be able to we're going to have such spiritual power. Even the thought of rising up against the children of Israel, it won't even exist in a man's mind, because in the kingdom of heaven, they're going to see people that can do these things that they was only able to see when they was watching their superhero movies on TV. Now they're going to actually see these people. But it's going to be an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Every dominion, every nation that survives the destruction and the judgment, all the remnants of these nations are going to serve and obey the children of Israel in the kingdom of heaven that's coming to earth. Every dominion, not some of them. All of those that survived the destruction and the judgment on Judgment Day of the other nations, they're going to serve and obey the elect of the children of Israel, starting with the 144,000. They're going to obey all the Israelites, but the governing body are going to be the 144,000 men with the 12 disciples, ruled up, taking charge of one of each disciple of each of the 12 tribes of Israel. King David on his throne, sitting on his throne in Jerusalem, Yahushua alongside King David on his throne in Jerusalem. It's going to be a beautiful time. Here too is the end of the matter. See, this is the end of the matter. So if you're able to receive what's been taught regarding the nation of Israel, the elect, how this is all going to play out, no matter what takes place between now and the Lord's coming, you understand how it's truly going to play out. And your spirit should be, your spirit should be on a high to do the Lord's work. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart. Because these were visions that were given to Daniel. He didn't necessarily understand them, but he saw the war, he saw the bombs, he saw the chariots, he saw the deliverance. You see a lot of things, but he wasn't necessarily able to truly understand what was going on. But he saw a lot of heartache, a lot of death. He saw salvation. It's going to be a beautiful day, man. Like I said, man, we just got to pray that Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shai, keeps us and does not take the Holy Spirit from us, man. And that he's patient with us and has mercy on us. So it's going to be a beautiful day. So, going back to what I saw when he was comparing the Roman Empire, when he was saying that, right, I was like, wow, look at that, boy. That's like the Spirit jumped on him to say that.
The Roman Empire, or analogous in many ways to the Greek city-states at the time of the Roman Empire.
See?
NATO, or analogous in many ways to the Greek city-states at the time of the Roman Empire. Initially, the Greek city-states found this Philip of Macedonia, who was a descendant of Alexander the Great, and his father Philip, reprehensible. They couldn't get rid of them. They were an oppressive, tyrannical group. And so they invited the Romans.
We're Edomites. And we're living under that oppressive, tyrannical group today, which are known as Edomites. Esau, Edomites.
Get rid of them. They were an oppressive, tyrannical group. And so they invited the Romans to come into Greece to help rid themselves of the Macedonian menace, which they did. The Romans threw them out, defeated the Macedonians, liberated Greece. And everything was fine until the Greek city-states decided to fight with each other. The Romans intervened again and said, look, we didn't liberate you so that you could kill each other and disrupt trade and commercial development in the Eastern Mediterranean. So we're taking over. We're running the place, which is effective.
That's America. Today, we're running the place. We're taking over. We're running the place. That's Babylon the Great, the reincarnation of the Roman Empire.
The Eastern Mediterranean. So we're taking over. We're running the place, which is effectively what we did after World War II. We said we're not going to allow anybody in Europe to fight anymore. We're going to establish peace. These are the guidelines.
See? That's what America, because America is the reincarnation of that Roman Empire. They did the exact same thing that Rome did back then 2,000 years ago. That's who they are. So I'm going to leave it there. I pray you are edified. As always, I want to give all the praise and the glory to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and to his only begotten Son, Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and to the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to you. And shalom to the hopefully elect brothers and sisters of the house of Israel. As I always say, keep praying, keep safe, repent, and hold on to this truth, family. Seriously. Because it's beautiful that even Colonel McGregor can see that America is Rome all over again. Europe represents those vassal states back during then. And the same thing we see back then, we are seeing here again today. All praises. Shalom, shalom, shalom. All praises, family.